Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Halo. Currently, right now, this is a Paramount Plus show. I'm going to go on and give you certain recommendations for you to go on and watch this for absolutely free. There's a couple of apps that I can dare, in fact, reference to you so you can be able to go on and watch this movie freely or watch this show freely. So, you can go onto a Google search and search an app called Leisure C Movies and be able to watch Halo once you download this app and watch Halo as well as new releases and a lot of other things. You can also go on to an app called Fox HD Movies where the logo will say that, but the title will say something different. It'll say Play 1080p HD movies, but if you go on and search the word Fox HD Movies, you should be able to come up with that app fairly easily. You can also go on to a Google Play Store and search the word TV Crush. And then all of a sudden you'll wind up with an app that has a logo that says HD Movies with like a crown off to the side. Download that app, and currently right now, that app has the pilot episode, but not the second episode, because there is 2 episodes coming off of Paramount Plus. So you can go on and watch the pilot episode, and eventually they'll probably bring up the second episode also. Like right now, I'm just going to focus on the pilot episode and then go on to, of course, the second episode tomorrow, simply because like I'm not quite sure how many people are interested in Halo, and I don't want to really go on and cram too much information into my brain as far as like trying to like remember all of this. So I want to go on here and I want to admit that I'm not a Halo expert, but I'm going to go on and try to break the Halo world down as best as I can. And there's some stuff that I do remember. There's some stuff that, of course, I was like, oh yeah, like this is obviously this item, because I have played the first Halo game before, and I've played kind of Halo with my friends in some points in my life. So like it's not like I'm completely in the dark about Halo and going into this. But for those of you that are kind of interested, like, hey, if you're not like a heavy video gamer and you are interested in finally like doing something Halo, are you gonna think that you're gonna completely be like very confused, not knowing what's going on? For those of you that don't know anything about Halo, and those of you who are probably Halo experts, either way, you can completely understand this show. It has a very easy breakdown of who people are. It has an easy like kind of story within, especially this first episode, and really they explain things. They go on and kind of set up certain settings and tell you what things are, so that way you don't get confused, which is great. Because a lot of times I would just be going on like, what is this? What is this area? Where am I? So on and so forth. But they set that up really good within the show. And so I immediately was like, oh, thank God. Like, this show sets things up, and I really appreciated that. So, what is the look of the show? How is, like, visuals? How is it? Man, right out of the gate, I would easily say that this show is great. This show is just, for one pilot episode, I was like, wow, this story is so interesting. And also, like, there's a good amount of action that you're just like, yeah, like, you have that yeah kind of feeling coming off of this pilot episode. And even we are to also, within pilot episode, get Master Chief to take his helmet off in this first pilot episode. So a lot of people are like, wow, because they waited a very long time to do that in game. And so now we're going on and seeing Master Chief in pilot episode take off his helmet, which is probably going to be a lot of excitement for a lot of people, or people are just like, meh, whatever. But I just thought that was so cool. So with that said, yeah. So within this episode, we have the Covenant, who are to be going up against, of course, the Spartans, the Marines, and the Rebels within this episode. So, the Covenant elite. So, really within this show, like for how possibly at some point that Halo might have changed or differed or whichever, it kind of feels like we're kind of bringing it back to a certain part of the show, like the early stages of Halo, but it's not like a copy and paste. To me, it feels, or to me, it doesn't feel like that. So, with that said, Master Chief, I don't know why I said that so loud there. Master Chief is to go on in this episode, and he is to be going on and touching some object, which is to start to make him rebel against his own people, his UNSC, and because he is starting to get memories of his past, or a number of memories which he is, or which the UNSC is not even thinking if this is really to be his memories, or there's just some things that are just kind of given to him or manipulated within to Master Chief. And so we're having Master Chief starting to rebel, starting to go against orders in this first episode, and we're of course going on and having Master Chief here going on and separating himself and trying to escape and trying to do the right thing. So, and along the way, we also get a number of UNSC people. We get rebels, and a lot of people are kind of differently telling their story. The funny thing about these rebels in this first episode is, man, like, these people go on and cut their hair with like a weed whacker. It's like, I'm like, man, these hairstyles are freaking awful. I'm hoping that is a wig, because there is no amount of money you could pay me to legitimately have that kind of hairstyle, which is to be this kind of weed whacker, kind of like it is the worst hairstyle. But with that said, and this is coming from the Mandrigal place, the kind of rebels within this episode. So with that said, I might be tripping over certain names because like I'm getting used to certain things, and so let's go on into spoilers about this one. Easily a great show. Definitely check it out. There might even be, there's like a lot of times where you go on and find like pilot episodes of certain shows online somewhere, because a lot of times like the first episode will be free, but then after that you can go on and have to fill out a subscription and stuff like that. So like there may be that out there for YouTube somewhere, where they might be giving away the first episode for free. So either way, check it out. It's for those of you who are either experts or have never heard of Halo in your life. This may be a different medium for those of you who want to finally see what this thing is about, because it's really good. I liked it. A lot of people probably immediately compare this to Mandalorian because it's easy. Like a guy who is to really stick to like having a helmet on for most of this episode. Like really, it just has that Mandalorian feel. So, and a lot of people probably hate that, but it's true. Like we don't have much lightsabers in here, but we have like energy swords. So similar. But moving on. So let's go on. Let's double five this bad boy up, because it's Halo time, because it's about that time again to go into spoiler time. Spoiler time, it's about the time you just get into spoil this episode. So again, if people like this first Halo review, I'll go on tomorrow and do the second episode. Like, I was just kind of worried or concerned that there'd be too much within one episode for me to go on and do another. So it is what it is. So, spoilers. We open this episode up in Mandragoal. And so this, of course, is the year 2552. So, like, it kind of, like, showcases that in the beginning of this episode. And that's the thing I love about it, where they actually explain things. A show that actually explains things. What an interesting thing here. So, we're going on and having a lot of guys going and playing this card game. We have this professor, and we have this girl who is going on and explaining things to a guy who is kind of caught unaware. We have this kind of news report going on in the background, and so we have this girl who goes on and of course is talking to this professor while they're playing this card game. And this professor is going on about that he has sticky hands because of him killing so many UNSC Marines, and that these guys are going on and talking about Spartans and Marines and kind of what is the difference. And so while that's going on, we have a guy named Vanisher or Vinisher that is talking about him being on the news, and that Jin Han had sent him to go on and talk to these people. And so we're going on here and having them talk about one Spartan would equal to 100 Marines, and that these guys are very deadly. And so it seems that these rebels that are here, like, they're kind of in the middle. They're not really wanting to be on the friendly side of Spartans, and they don't want to be on the friendly side of Marines. So they're kind of caught in the crossfire between the two of them, because really they're wanting to have their own free environment. And so we go on here and they're talking about Spartans and how good they are, and how people should be afraid of them. And so all of a sudden, Jin Han is to make his way into this kind of poker game, and everybody's just kind of like, oh, hey, hi, because this guy is kind of their general. And so all of a sudden, Jin here is going on and talking to one of the girls, or the girl that was at that poker game. And Jin is asking where his daughter is. Where is Kwan? And it seems that Kwan had gone on with a number of girls to try to scavenge for items. So we then go on and have Kwan, who is with a girl named Kara, to try and search for hydrogen, because in this planet, there of course is the galaxy's highest concentration of heavy hydrogen. So supposedly hydrogen is to go on and not only be a fuel source for a lot of their ships, but it's also a drug source for them to also use. So it's fuel, but then it's also drugs, which is just kind of okay. So we have a number of these kids all going on and assumingly taking a part of this hydrogen, and just kind of hoping they're going to have a fun trip, I guess. And all of a sudden, Quan is to go on and walk further and further to find a Covenant Phantom, which is to be an alien ship. So, come to find out, the Covenant elite were going on and doing this excavation through this cave to go on and find this object. So, we have Quan that is running back to her people and telling them, hey, we gotta get back here, we gotta get back to the outpost, or we're probably gonna die. And so Quan runs all the way back after releasing out this red flare, and after Quan has released this red flare because some of her friends are getting killed off here by this thing that she has never seen before, the red flare is to be set off, getting, of course, all of these people and, of course, Jin here to get on this. I think it looks like a Warthog that has like a turret gun on it. And so immediately Jin is getting everybody set up for war. And so we immediately have Quan, who's the only one who was to make it out of her friend's group, to now run back to Jin here. And now Jin is kind of like, well, hey, like, was it Marines? Was it Spartans? What was it? And Quan is saying that it is neither. It's neither one of them. And so we're like, oh my god. So now we go on and we're having these guys brace for whatever this is. And of course, whatever this is to, of course, be the Covenant elite that are making their way through here, very shielded, and of course coming in here with just kind of plasma rifles and energy swords, just going through and just slicing up all these people because they're well shielded. And so we have this Covenant elite that is just kind of running through these people and killing them off. And so all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we have these Spartans who drop in. And, of course, Master Chief is to be one of them. So we all of a sudden have this moment where Jin and Master Chief are kind of like nodding to one another, say like, hey, we're going to work together. Because Jin is trying to scramble for this weapon to go on and try to protect his people. And Master Chief comes in and is trying to help out. So all of a sudden the professor is realizing that it's like, oh my god, like the Spartans working with the rebels? Like, this has never happened before. Like, I guess this like this is like a one-of-a-kind occurrence. So, okay. So sadly enough, we start to have the rebels try and desperately hide the ones who can fight, like the little kids, the little children. And at some point, the Covenant is to go on with the Covenant elite is to go on and kind of just easily rip open these doors and attack people. And so, like, really desperately having to try and save anybody. And so the Spartans are going on here, and we just start to see like an all-out like amazing fight here. We have it at one point where Master Chief is to have to grab and rip out this turret gun to blast up these Covenant elite, while one of his Spartans are kind of like are kind of pinned against this one kind of stone wall. And so Master Chief is blasting these guys up, and I'm like, yeah, because we really need some heavy-duty weaponry to take these guys down because, of course, they're shielded. Master Chief is also to be shielded, and so we can kind of see some of these characters kind of going on and doing things kind of freely, but like they also have to kind of be cautious about how far they go and so on and so. So we have these guys just kind of tearing through a lot of the elite Covenant here, or so we realize that at one point we have Jin, who is to get hoisted up by one of these elite Covenant, and one of these elite go and have this energy sword through Jin and kills him, as Quan is to basically watch her father die, as Quan is trying to grab some weapon to protect her father, and he dies, sadly. So we also have Quan, who is to try to desperately try to make her way through parts of here to realize certain people have died, like the professor has died, and it seems that it's going to get to the point where Quan is possibly the only survivor. I'm like, wait a minute, wasn't there a lot of kids that are kind of hiding out? How is it that Quan is the only survivor? That doesn't exactly make sense to me. So Spartans go through and tear up all of these elite, kill them off, and so Master Chief is to go on and make a report here that it seems there's only one rebel survivor, and that all the elite or all the elite are dead, and all the Spartans are fine. So now we have to go on and have Master Chief with his people go and find the Covenant Phantom ship to kind of investigate and see what they're doing. So Master Chief goes on and tells both Fennec and Riz to clear the Phantom ship, while of course Master Chief and Kai are going to go into this cave to see what the elite were doing. So Master Chief is to go on with Kai in the ship, and they go on and they notice that the elite have been excavating for a while and digging into this cave, and it seems that Master Chief is to stumble upon this object, and he's just like, oh, well, I'll just go on and just take the object and we'll get out of here. All of a sudden, Master Chief is to touch this object, and we'll kind of see later what this object was to do to Master Chief, and they kind of thoroughly explain it. So Master Chief is all of a sudden seeing these visions, these memories about a possible home that he had, a possible family that he had, and so on and so forth. So Master Chief is to just be consumed with this object that he just, after he is to first touch this thing, he's like, man, he keeps looking at it. He's just kind of captivated by it. So they can't go on and, or all of a sudden they grab this so after they grab this object, the whole cave lights up in this kind of weird lighting, and they go on and they do take the object out of the cave and they put it in some case somewhere. And so after their mission and after everything is kind of technically resolved, we of course have Master Chief, who is to tell the same guys who went to go on into that ship to go on and take the ship back to FleetCom so they can research it and look into intel for it, to kind of see if there's any kind of interesting things. But Master Chief is also to tell Kai here to go on with them, and Master Chief is going to go on the Condor, and he's going to bring back the last survivor. And Kai, who is just I'm just getting used to these names, so if I'm butchering them, I apologize. I'm getting used to the names. So Kai here is saying well, that's not protocol. I should be going with you on the Condor. And Master Chief's like, no, go on with them. So we now, of course, are transitioning to Planet Reach, which is kind of just uh, Fleetcom headquarters, or UNSC headquarters. So we have Dr. Catherine Halsey that is kind of running diagnostics, kind of going through the mission and stuff like that, kind of checking on things. And so, kind of checking on this object and like running through like the visuals through Master Chief's headset. One thing that I also want to talk about, there was at one point where we had a first person view through Master Chief's like visor in the episode, and I was like, oh my god, like that was so cool. Like they gave us like a first person, like a POV or whatever, and I was like, man, that is so cool. Like, yeah, it was just for a couple of seconds, but I'm kind of curious, and I'm kind of wondering if they're going to continue that through some parts of the show, like especially during the fight moments, because that would be honestly really cool. But I don't know. Maybe that was just like a nod to the gamers to just be like, hey, like you're gonna see like through Master Chief's headset, and I thought that that was so. I was like, yeah. So we all of a sudden have Halsey here be interrupted by Admiral Perongoski. Perongoski. And so the Admiral here is talking to Halsey and is kind of mentioning they get these when they get these items back, where are they going, and also who's going to talk to Quan, and like tell her what Quan is going to do next, and so on and so. Oh, we have Halsey here who wants the object, and the Admiral is saying no, because a Miranda is to have alien tech. That's her division. And Halsey here is like, I don't care. John, who is Master Chief, was to go on and find this object, so I want it. So the Admiral is also mentioning that Miranda Keyes is also going to talk to the Rebel. She's going to talk to Quan, because Miranda Keyes had gone on to that place before, and so like it's just a familiar face to talk to this girl. And so the doctor is just like, okay, fine, like I don't care who talks to her. So we then transition after that to the Covenant's like home ship, or really just the High Charity Covenant Command. So we go on, and in this clip, we're having a former human converted to the Covenant, who is Maki, who is talking to a Covenant member, I believe, called Mercy. And so they're talking in Covenant alien language. So there is subtitles by the bottom. So these guys are exchanging conversation, and it seems that Maki is going on and reading some human book, is reading some Earth book, or some like human book. So Maki is just saying that she wants to kind of understand her enemy, kind of thing, and reading off this book. So they're going on and talking about what had happened, kind of a briefing thing. And so like really that's all that really matters. Like there's not like a huge amount of like profound things that are coming on between this first conversation. So there's not a huge thing that we're missing out here. So we go on here and we have Miranda, that goes on and talks to Quan, because Quan is consistently banging on this glass, and so trying to get Master Chief's attention. And so Quan is talking to Miranda, and Miranda is trying to convince Quan here to trying to put forth a video talking about the Covenant and how these Spartans had gone on and helped the rebels. And like we have Quan, who's trying to be like the PR person for the Spartans, and possibly saying that like the rebels need to like assist with the Spartans and the Marines and so on and so forth to fight this threat. And Quan is like, no, like I'm not going to do that, because if anything, Quan is going to go up against them and mention how like there was so many of her people who had died during that whole thing, and Quan is not going to give in to some uh, propaganda that is to just go on and have her be the face of something that she doesn't possibly believe in or she doesn't want to go on and support. So Quan is to not want to go on and do anything of which Miranda is to say here, and we really just have Miranda who just goes off and is to eventually talk to Captain Keyes, which is her dad, and Captain Keyes is telling Miranda here that they're just going to go on and Article 37 her. That they're just going to go on and Quan, the last like rebel from this place, is just going to have them say that this girl had succumbed to her injuries and they're just going to kill her off. And Miranda's like, what? Like you're gonna just decide to just kill this girl off? Like if anything, we could work with her. We can like maybe we can have her like help us in some way. But they're like, no, like we're just gonna go on and just kill her off. Like it's just the easy, like it's only one person anyways, so might as well just kill her. So we have Master Chief that is going on and checking himself into some device, trying to see if he's okay, to run a diagnostic because he feels weird, he feels different, and he keeps going on and looking at this object. So we even have the doctor here. We have Dr. Catherine that's going on and like having a like a talk with Master Chief, just kind of debriefing and just kind of like asking if he's okay. But also Catherine is to go on and see what had happened through Master Chief's body while he was touching this object. And so Catherine is realizing that Master Chief is to have seen certain things that might be memories to him. And so we also had it where Catherine was talking to the Admiral before about this mission that Catherine is trying to keep alive. And the Admiral is like, why are you putting forth effort to kind of keeping this project alive? Like, you know that I'm never going to agree to this ever being done. And we'll talk about it a little bit more towards the back half of this episode. So we go on and have at some point where Master Chief is talking to Quan because Quan is banging on this window again. And so Master Chief goes on and sees Quan and she's hungry. So Master Chief goes on and gives her food, and Quan, of course, is asking Master Chief, well, do you eat anything? And Master Chief is like, well, I didn't see anything good that I wanted to eat. And he mentions that he's like, yeah, like nuts and bolts and microchips and and then he's like, that's not what I eat. She's like, oh, okay. Like, kind of making a joke here that a Spartan is not just some robot, it's a real person. So so we have it where it seems that Quan is to have known the Spartans before, because Quan was to mention that her mother died uh, right around the time that the Spartans had came before, and supposedly there was an uh, insurrectionist bomb threat, and that's what the Spartans were responding to. And supposedly it didn't make any sense for them to even be there because really it was uh, insurrectionists taking down insurrectionists. It didn't, like, there was nothing that really made sense. And so, but that led to Quan's mother's death. So all of a sudden, while they're talking, and it seems that Master Chief is to uh like really, like, in some ways kind of just like Quan and just kind of joke around with her and have fun. All of a sudden Master Chief is to get the Article 37 order and is to have Quan's name on it and face. And so Master Chief is asking Quan what her name is, and she replies that it's the name that, of course, he sees on his screen. So Master Chief is to go on and decide to disable his camera feed going to, of course, his headquarters. And now we go on and we have Dr. Catherine, who is now in this meeting area with Admiral and with Captain Keyes, and they're now just kind of very worried about what Master Chief is doing because it seems like he's doing things on his own. And the Admiral is asking, like, both Captain Keyes and, like, do you think that he, like, knows about the Article 37? Do you think he got the mission statement? And they're like, well, I'm not sure. And they're also just kind of very unsure of what's going on with Master Chief. They're just very concerned here. So we have Dr. Catherine and the Admiral going and talking about uh, the Cortana system, which, of course, was this cloning thing that they went on and did here. I guess there was some kind of cloning thing that they had done that they scrapped because I guess they would never allow cloning. So now going on, we have the Admiral and Captain Keyes and Catherine. They all decide that they're going to go on and shut down the oxygen levels in the ship because they still can control the ship. And this ship is going to take, the Condor is going to take several hours to make it to headquarters. So, make it to Reach. So, we have it where they're going through, like, the ship, and they're trying to find another way to see what's going on throughout the ship without actually having a camera feed, but is to go on and kind of see what's still going on. So what happens is they take down the oxygen, which is to supposedly try to kill off Quan, while also just knocking Master Chief unconscious, because of course Quan is to go on and say like, well, hey, like, do you really need to like have that helmet on? And Master Chief is to go on and say, it's like, well, yeah, like, it has all my systems and everything like that, and like, so yeah, like I'll always have it on. So we have it where Master Chief is to make his way, is to crawl his way after kind of dropping kind of Quan off to the side. Master Chief is to crawl to go on and find the manual oxygen, uh, like uh, like thing to go and adjust it so the oxygen can go back onto the ship. And so they're like, oh my god, like, so there is nothing that they can really go on and do and shut this guy down. So they're just kind of waiting for the Condor to make it back to Breach, to make it back to headquarters. So everybody is gearing up. They're sending the rest of the Spartans out to then try to reason with Master Chief, but not to kill him, but they're just kind of preparing for anything. So, because Catherine is to go and tell the Spartans, like, hey, do not kill Master Chief. Just kind of go on and, like, subdue him, because we want to figure out what's going on. So, the Condor is to forcibly, like, crash land its way to headquarters, because it's to get blasted out of the sky. So, before that happens, we have Master Chief, who takes off his helmet to try and earn trust with Quan, because Quan is to grab this rifle and is, of course, to be very upset with Master Chief right now, and it makes a lot of sense because, like, they almost tried to kill this girl. So she goes on and is to grab this, I think it's an assault rifle. So we have it where Master Chief is telling, of course, this girl here that, you know what, like, you're not going to make a dent with that gun by shooting me. Like, this armor is so, like, it's so well put together, there's no way you're going to be able to shoot and kill me. So Master Chief is to go on and he's to decide, it's like, well, I want her to trust me. So Master Chief takes his helmet off and is to tell her, it's like, well, hey, if you're going to shoot me, shoot up high. So Quan is to realize that she can trust the Master Chief. So she chucks her rifle to him, and he chucks this rifle back to her to just say, like, hey, you're going to need this. So, because the Master Chief is to go on and try to get manual controls from the ship, and so Quan is to have to go on and shoot this one area that has these wires, and Master Chief is to go on and do some adjustments so he can get manual control of this ship. So once they crash land this ship, all of a sudden now all of the Spartans and all of the military guys are making their way to this ship, and so Master Chief is realizing that he needs to go on here, or John needs to go on here because his helmet's off, and touch this object again. And so all of a sudden we have this object, after he touches it, has this kind of like EMP pulse that is to shockwave its way through this whole entire headquarters. And so all of a sudden the ship is the first thing that comes back on compared to everything else. And so we have it where uh, Master Chief and Quan get the heck out of here. They fly out of here, and they make their way out. And so everybody after that is just kind of scrambling to just like, okay, we need to chase after them. We need to try to hunt them down. So really, for the most point, that's how this first episode is to finish up or rattle off. Let me know how you feel about the very first Halo episodes. Let me know if you like this show, if you love Halo, if you want to check this show out, go on and do so. I would recommend it. Again, I am not by any means a Halo expert, but I'm going to just try to do the best that I can. Funny enough, I kind of didn't go and do this kind of like the normal way of which I would do with this, would have like the whole cast list and whatever. I kind of like skated by for the most point. Um, but it was really great. Like this episode actually like listed every single freaking name of these characters. So I was like, wow, what a difference in this show compared to like a lot of others where you would go on and just be like, okay, who is this person? Who's that? I don't know who this guy is. Who's what? Like they gave a thorough explanation of who everyone is, to the point of me just saying like, man, my job is going to be a lot easier. And I applaud that show for this. So we'll see where this episode heads. But yeah, I think a lot of people are going to easily compare this to it feels like Mandalorian. So a lot of people are like, yeah, good. Like I wanted something because like there is no Boba Fett, there is no Mandalorian right now. It's just kind of Moon Knight. So a lot of people might be looking for that fix, and they might be going to Halo to get that. So with that said, I think I'm just gonna get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.